Hello everyone, welcome back. We're continuing with the Carolina Springs Charter of the Hawks MC, and today we are going to be doing Fallout. Now I do want to give a real quick reference real quick. There is a novella that takes place before Fallout, and that is Breakout. And Breakout is the story of Finn Cadian, also known as Handel, and Mardella Kent, also known as Della. I haven't read this book yet. I do have it on my Kindle. I've gotten sidetracked with other things that I have to prep for for upcoming holidays and things, and I haven't gotten a chance to get to it, to be honest. There are a few of the novellas that I have read. There are a few that I have not. I've read all of the actual novels. I just haven't read all the novellas as of yet. So that being said, let's get on with the actual review of Fallout. So trigger warnings for this story include there's violence, there's reference to human trafficking, there's reference to sexual assault, there was implication of an attempted sexual assault on a minor. I think that's it. I could be wrong though. So, because I forgot to write down all the trigger warnings when I was taking the notes for all of these. So the last few reviews I've done on the same day, and I forgot to write down the trigger warnings when I was taking my notes. And I don't always remember everything at the drop of a hat because I'm not 21 anymore, so. That being said, this is the story of Poppy Torian and Jeremiah Liang, also known as Fang. Now, we met Fang for the first time in Living Without. He was the young man that Nari May had been dating while she was at university. And he was also the one that Vicious found out was a part of another MC that is called Venom. And then, of course, when Nari May had been taken, he basically took that to mean that he hadn't done well enough to protect her and would not pursue a relationship with her anymore. And I think he also recognized that Vicious really loved Nari and that Nari really loved Vicious, and he didn't want to be in the way of that. And then we also find out in this story, he's kind of held a torch for the young lady Poppy since she disappeared a few years ago. By disappear, I don't mean she like vanished into thin air. She went to go live with, I think it was an aunt. And she never said goodbye to him or anything, and so he thought she didn't want to see him anymore. So, that being said, Fang and Poppy were both part of the same MC growing up. Her family had moved to Carolina Springs so that her father could be the vice president to Venom, which is the MC that they both grew up in. And Jeremiah's father, sorry, it's a different pronunciation, his father was the president of the MC. His father was a very corrupt man. He was into some very illegal and disgusting things. He liked younger girls or younger women. And it pushed him away from the MC. So she and her family moved to Carolina Springs when she was like, I think, a freshman, which I'm not sure if freshman is the same grade as freshman stands for in the US. In the US, it would be like 9th grade. I think it's similar, but I could be wrong. So don't hold me to that. But first day of school, her first day of school at a new school, and she already had people who disliked her because she was a little bit different. Jeremiah's girlfriend of the time took something of an instant disliking to Poppy and started trying to pick on her. And then when Jeremiah found out that they were in the same club, well, first off, he stood up for her right away because he doesn't like it when people are picking on other people for no apparent reason. That's as a teenager. I mean, as a teenager, he was like that, so that speaks very well of him. But then when he found out that she was that her father was going to be the vice president of the MC, he was like, okay, well, she's part of Venom, so we protect each other, essentially. And they basically became very good friends. They became very close. They fell in love with each other, but neither of them realized that the other had the same feelings. And then one day, or one evening more accurately, after Jeremiah had kind of begun hanging around the MC, I don't know if he was already in the MC or not, or if he was just a prospect. But one night she went to the party. I think she was intending to tell him what her feelings for him were. And he was there with another woman, because even though he had feelings for Poppy, he recognized she was too young, and he didn't think she had feelings for him anyways. And so he was going to have a night of fun, so to speak. And the woman had asked him, what is this with you and that girl Poppy? Why are you two always together? And he basically was like, oh, she's nothing important. She's just a friend. She's like a sister to me. Well, hello. Sorry about that. The kiddokin decided to barge in wearing Grandpa's Vietnam War hat and had to show me, so Jeremiah realized that Poppy was very young, and also he didn't really think she had any feelings for him. And so when this woman had asked, what's going on with you and Poppy, he basically insinuated she wasn't really much of anything. She was just a young kid that he kind of befriended. Poppy was crushed, and she went to go get a beer out of the fridge, and that's where she came into contact with Jeremiah's father, who attempted to force himself on her. And another member of the club got her away from him. She told her mother what had happened, and her mother agreed with her that they have to wait until the correct time, because dynamics and politics in the MC was very different from what you would see in everyday life, so to speak, at least in this club. And so she basically convinced her father to let her go live with her aunt for a while, basically telling him there was a little bit of a tiff between the kids. Yeah, we have to let them handle it, downplaying things so that the father wouldn't lose his mind and try to kill the president of the club, which could possibly get him killed by extension by other members of the club. So there was a lot of backstory, obviously, that happened. And so the story mostly there are some flashbacks and things, but for the most part, the story takes place in modern day. Poppy has come back to town. It's now 4 years later. She's an adult. She's going to college. Is she going to college, or is she just working right now? I think she was going to college, but because of financial issues, I think she quit school and was working. Her mother is in an elderly home because she has Alzheimer's, and so she had to be in a place where she could be watched 24/7, essentially. And so Poppy has decided she would work and help her father pay the bills. By this point, Fang has switched from Venom to Hawk's MC. He doesn't like the way his father was running the club. At the end of Living Without, they managed to oust his father, and another member of the club, who goes by the name of Blackie, had taken over. And while they still do things that the Hawks MC doesn't agree with, they do it in a way that it's consensual by pretty much everybody involved. So the Hawks MC doesn't have a direct tiff with them, but they're not the same club. So they do interact. They do have a better relationship than they did before, so to speak. So Fang is part of Hawk's MC, as I said. And he found out that Poppy is back in town. And he realizes he's still in love with Poppy. And he starts going out of his way to try and get back in her good graces, so to speak. And she's kind of being stalked by a guy she had gone out a few times with. He is part of Venom, and she doesn't really want to see him anymore, but she also understands it's kind of a precarious situation. He is a part of the club that her father is part of, and it's a very difficult situation. So she has to tread lightly. And Fang basically claims Poppy, even though she doesn't know if there can ever be anything between them. And then when things from the past come to light about Fang's father, Fang really has a difficult time handling it. And the guys in the Hawks MC, you know, obviously because she is a woman that Fang wants, they're willing to help out, but you're really surprised when Saxon steps up and says, we're going to take care of it. Because Saxon and Fang don't like each other too much, because Saxon has a very great dislike of Fang because he had dated Nari. So you see the beginnings of that old grudge being buried, which is kind of nice. Once they come to terms with their feelings now and what their feelings were then, Poppy and Fang are a very great couple. And you see a lot of similarities in personality between Nari and Poppy, and it's very clear that Fang was drawn to Nari because she kind of reminded him of Poppy, I think. Maybe not in looks per se, but in terms of personality and the way she is. As for the characters, Jeremiah has always been a stand-up kind of a guy. It was very difficult for him to be raised by a man who was into really, really just, I'm going to say it, just some very fucked up shit. He didn't appreciate the things his father was getting the club into. He didn't appreciate the way his father would look at Poppy when they would come over for, you know, family dinners and things. He had no idea what his father had done or tried to do to Poppy. And when he found out, he didn't know how to handle it. He felt like he hadn't protected her. He was like, my gosh, I couldn't protect Nari. I couldn't protect Poppy. You know, took it very, very hard. And he's just, again, very straight up, straightforward kind of guy. Very much the kind of guy any father would want his daughter dating, I feel. As for Poppy, she, you know, just like Fang had always been in love with her, she had always been in love with him. And it really hurt her when she heard him basically say that she was, for all intents and purposes, nothing special, just a friend, just a kid that he'd befriended, so to speak. So that really hurt. And then she didn't want to make things harder for Fang because she knew that even though he didn't have romantic feelings for her, that he was her friend and would have protected her. And she knew her father would have protected her, but being that the man they would have had to protect her from was the president of the MC at the time, she didn't want either of them getting hurt. She didn't want either of them to be shunned from the club for doing anything. So she was very mature in many ways by deciding to take herself out of the scenario so that groundwork could be started. Because the person who had saved her from Jeremiah's father was Blackie, who was the man who became the president of the club after they pushed him out. And when she came back, she did it for selfless reasons. She did it to come back. She came back to help her father pay for her mother's treatments and pay for her boarding at the Alzheimer's ward, and also to be closer to her mother, so that when her mother did have the good days where she remembered everything, that they could have more time as a family. There's a side story with her brother who has gotten into a lot of really messed up stuff for purposes of drugs, and he has a redemption arc in there. He was not a great guy, but there is a redemption arc in there, and there's implication that he may come back and try to make good on being a better person in the future. So lots of really great plots, subplots, great character development. And it's really it's super sweet because it's a second chance romance in the story. And considering that these are both characters that came in later in the series, Lila Rose does a very good job of getting you caught up on backstory and making you vested in their lives and their relationship and how they intertwine with each other and with the club. So it's very well done. It's very well handled. I would give this particular book a 4.6 out of 5 stars. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope that it was helpful for you in deciding whether or not you would like to read this book or any of the other books. So that was the last full-length novel. The next review is going to be for a couple of the novellas, and then I'm also going to give you the names of the remaining novellas that I have not read yet. And then we'll be done with the Hawks MC series until the Next Generation book, Coyote, comes out on December 1st, and that will be the first reading vlog that I ever do for this channel. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do it on the channel or if I'm going to do it on my Instagram. I might just do blurbs on Instagram, but we'll see. We'll see. It's all up in the air right now. So I look forward to seeing you all at the next review. You take care. Bye-bye.